We need you to come down to the precinct for questioning.
But why?
Huh?
I haven't done anything.
We're gonna need you to clear the area, ma'am.
I understand that, but I haven't done anything wrong.
The storm had broken just as the meeting ended. Rain smeared the skyline, and Aisha Monroe moved briskly across the lot, umbrella tilting against the wind. She'd stayed late, quarterly review, investor calls, the usual grind of someone who owned too much responsibility and slept too little. Her Tesla flashed its lights as she approached, an obedient gleam amid the chaos. She didn't notice the patrol car until it slid in behind her, tires hissing. "Ma'am, step away from the vehicle." She turned, startled. Two officers emerged, rain dripping off their jackets. One, tall and pale with a hard jawline, Riggs approached fast, hand already hovering near his holster. "What seems to be the problem?" Aisha asked, voice calm, composed. "Vehicle reported stolen," Riggs said. "License and registration." She frowned. "That's impossible. It's registered under my name." "Yeah, that's what they all say." The female officer, Daniels, hesitated near the cruiser, eyes darting between them. Aisha opened her purse slowly, movements deliberate. Inside was her aide corporate badge and car registration. Riggs snatched them from her hand, scanning quickly. "This says Monroe Biotech," he muttered. "You worked there." "I own it," she said simply. He smirked. "Right, and I'm the president." Something shifted in her chest, that subtle sting of familiarity, the kind she thought she'd outgrown. Years of building, proving, outpacing, and still this. "I'd like to call my attorney," she said. "Not before we sort this out." He motioned for Daniels. "Cuff her." Daniels froze. "Sir, maybe we should now." The cuffs clicked, cold, unforgiving. Aisha's jaw tightened. The sound of metal drew eyes from the sidewalk, pedestrians slowing, recording, a voice from somewhere. "Isn't that the woman from the news?" Riggs ignored it. "Turn around," he ordered. "You're making a mistake," Aisha said, steady but low. "Lady, I'm doing my job." "Then do it correctly." He shoved the door open, guiding her inside the cruiser. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from outrage barely held in check. Inside the car, she caught her reflection in the glass, rain streaks cutting across her face like fractures. Somewhere deep in her, something hardened. Daniels climbed into the driver's seat, avoiding eye contact. Riggs muttered into his radio. Static filled the silence. "Dispatch, we've detained the suspect driving the Tesla, taking her in for questioning." "Copy," came the reply. Aisha leaned forward. "You're detaining me for driving my own car." Riggs didn't turn. "You can explain that downtown." The ride was short, but endless. Her mind replayed every second, the disbelief of passersby, the weight of eyes on her, as if she were exhibit and spectacle both. At the station, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, sterile and sharp. Riggs led her inside, still cuffed. The desk sergeant looked up. "What's this?" "Vehicle theft suspect." Aisha spoke before he could continue. "My name is Aisha Monroe, CEO of Monroe Biotech. I have been unlawfully detained." The sergeant blinked. Recognition flickered. The name meant something. "Riggs, you sure about this?" "She fits the description," Riggs said flatly. "Description of what?" Aisha snapped. "Existing while black." The room went quiet. Daniels shifted uneasily. Riggs' eyes narrowed. "Watch your tone." "No," she said, voice rising, sharp as glass. "You watch yours." A faint murmur rippled through the officers nearby. The sergeant sighed, rubbing his temples. "Book her. We'll sort it later." Aisha stared at him, incredulous. "You're all complicit." No one met her gaze. The blue and red lights carved through the dusk like warning flares. Cars slowed, phones lifted. Aisha Monroe stepped out of her Tesla, heels clicking on wet asphalt, silk blouse glowing faintly under the flickering street. She had left her briefcase on the passenger seat, documents inside that bore her name in gold. CEO, Monroe Biotech International. "Hands where I can see them." The shout cut through the drizzle. Two officers approached. The taller one, Officer Riggs, already gripping his cuffs. The other, a woman, hung back, uncertain. Aisha blinked. "Excuse me." "What's don't move?" Riggs barked. "We got a report of a stolen vehicle. You match the description." The words hit her like a slap. Around them, a small crowd had formed, cell phones up, whispering, watching. She raised her hands, steady but trembling. "This is my car." Riggs smirked, circling her. "Sure it is." The metal cuff snapped shut, cold and humiliating. Her briefcase fell open, glossy company reports spilling into the puddles. Her photo on the cover stared up from the water. Aisha Munro, CEO. For a second, silence. Then someone in the crowd gasped. Riggs looked down, saw it, and his jaw tightened. "Doesn't change what I said," he muttered, yanking her toward the patrol car. Aisha's voice, low and fierce, cut through the night. "You just handcuffed your boss." The female officer froze. Riggs laughed once, sharp and nervous, but his grip didn't loosen. Somewhere behind the flashing lights, a camera kept recording. And when Aisha looked up, her eyes were not pleading anymore. They were calculating. The kind of look that promised this night would not end quietly. As they led her away, she caught sight of the TV in the lobby, a breaking news banner. "Unidentified woman, arrested outside Monroe Biotech headquarters." Her own company logo hovered beneath the headline. The cuffs tightened as Riggs pulled her forward, and in that moment, humiliation gave way to something colder. A quiet, lethal calm. She whispered to herself, almost inaudible, but Riggs heard. "This isn't over." He laughed under his breath. "It never is." Outside, the rain fell harder, washing nothing clean. The holding cell smelled of damp metal and disinfectant. Every sound echoed the hum of flickering lights, the shuffle of boots, the dull clang of doors closing somewhere far down the corridor. Aisha sat on the narrow bench, wrists bruised where the cuffs had been. Her coat, soaked through, clung to her shoulders, cold and heavy. She stared at the wall, blank but alive with faint reflections of motion, shadows passing, uniforms moving. The silence wasn't peace, it was control. Outside the bars, Officer Riggs laughed with another cop, loud and careless. "Can you believe that one? CEO, she says. Probably forged the papers." His voice carried, deliberately. Aisha didn't flinch. She'd learned long ago that silence, when held correctly, could be sharper than any reply. But silence has weight, and it presses hardest in rooms built to contain it. A few feet away, another officer leaned against the counter, younger, darker-skinned eyes quietly alert. His name tag read Carter. He glanced toward the cell, hesitated, then looked away when Riggs turned. "Hey Carter," Riggs called. "Why don't you take a look at Miss Monroe here? Maybe she'll talk to you. You two got, something in common." Laughter erupted. A few others chuckled before pretending not to. Carter's jaw flexed. He said nothing, stepping forward just enough to check the clipboard. He asked softly. Aisha met his eyes. "You already know it." He nodded once, barely perceptible. "You got anyone to call?" "I've tried. Your front desk keeps redirecting me." He swallowed. "I'll see what I can do." Riggs snorted. "Don't waste time, rookie. She's got no lawyer, just attitude." Aisha's voice was calm. "Attitude is what you hear when someone stops begging." Riggs froze mid. The room thinned. Even the hum of the lights seemed to waver. Carter cleared his throat. "I'll handle the paperwork." Riggs glared, but didn't stop him. He turned away, muttering, "Whole damn world upside down." Carter waited until they were alone, then leaned closer to the bars. "They shouldn't have brought you in." That call came from some app user. Anonymous tip. Happens all the time. Aisha's lips twitched in bitter disbelief. "And your department acts without verifying ownership." He looked at the floor. "You know how it is." "Yes," she said. "That's the problem." A beat of silence. Then, "I can get your lawyer on the line in 10 minutes, Carter said, voice low, "but it'll look like I'm bending rules." "Rules are already broken," she replied. "You'd just be correcting them." He studied her, not like a suspect, but like someone searching for courage in another person's stead. Then he nodded, retreating toward the desk, through the bars. Aisha listened as Riggs' laughter returned from the hallway, joined by the thud of vending machine buttons and casual talk about football. The noise was maddening in its normality, the sound of people comfortable inside injustice. Minutes stretched. The lights hummed harder. A bead of rain slid down her sleeve, cold against her skin. She closed her eyes. In her mind, she saw the conference table she was supposed to sit at that morning. Investors waiting, the look of surprise that would sweep across their faces when they saw the news alert. Everything she'd built could fracture with one careless narrative. Black woman arrested outside her own company. When Carter returned, he carried a phone. "Your attorney's on," he whispered. 2 minutes tops. Aisha stood, took the receiver through the bars. "Naomi." The voice on the other end crackled, firm, indignant. "Aisha, are you all right? I saw the footage. It's everywhere. Sit tight, I'm coming down now. Do not sign anything." Riggs appeared in the doorway. "Phone time's over." Aisha didn't look at him. You'll want to be polite, she said evenly, handing the receiver back to Carter. You're about to meet a lawyer who doesn't play nice with bad cops. Riggs smiled, then mocking. We'll see who plays nice. He walked away, but his voice carried. These people think money makes them untouchable. Carter's face tightened. I'll make sure she gets her call again, if needed, he said quietly, to no one in particular. Aisha sat back down. Her wrists throbbed. The walls felt closer. Outside the cell, a printer hummed, the sound of reports being typed, narratives being fixed before truth could catch up. She watched the paper feed, line by line, like a story being written about her without her consent. Then, faintly, a commotion from the lobby, voices rising, urgent. Who's in charge here? A woman's voice, sharp as command. Naomi. Riggs' voice stumbled in reply. Ma'am, you can't just. Oh, I can, Naomi cut in. And if you value your pension, you'll open that door now. Aisha's head lifted. For the first time in hours, she felt air return to her lungs. Carter unlocked the cell, murmuring, She's here. Aisha stepped out, slow, deliberate. Riggs stood across the room, pale now, his earlier confidence dripping away like the rain from his coat. Naomi approached, phone in hand, already recording. Officer Riggs, she said, voice icy. Smile, you're trending. The station fell into uneasy quiet. Aisha adjusted her coat, met Riggs' eyes, and said nothing. Silence again, but now it was hers. As she walked toward the exit beside her attorney, every pair of eyes followed, some out of guilt, some out of awe, and in that corridor lined with badges and authority, Aisha Monroe understood something fundamental. Power wasn't loud. It didn't need to shout. It simply walked out, while everyone else stayed standing still. The door to the precinct opened, and a surge of air rushed in, heavy with rain and the sound of sirens outside. Cameras flashed like gunfire. Aisha Monroe stepped out, chin high, coat draped across her shoulders. Naomi walked beside her, phone still rolling. Reporters were already crowding the sidewalk, their microphones pointed like weapons disguised as questions. Double quotes. Ms. Monroe, how does it feel to be profiled by your own city's police? Do you plan to sue? Was this racially motivated? Naomi blocked them with one sharp motion. No statements. Not yet. Aisha didn't speak. Her silence was its own statement. Behind her, through the glass doors, Officer Riggs stood in the lobby. His face was pale, his jaw clenched. Around him, the buzz of whispers, colleagues muttering, some pretending not to watch. Should we suspend him? Someone whispered near the desk. Too late. Another voice murmured. Public already decided. The dashcam footage had hit social media hours earlier. The cuffs, the briefcase spilling, the line that everyone was replaying. You just handcuffed your boss. Every major outlet had it. Hashtag Aisha Monroe was trending worldwide. Naomi leaned toward her as they entered the black sedan, waiting at the curb. You want to make a statement later tonight? No, Aisha said. Let them talk first. Every word they say now will cost them later. The car pulled away from the curb. Through the rain-streaked window, she saw the police building shrinking behind them, still flashing blue and red. Naomi exhaled, shaking her head. You know they'll try to spin this. Internal review, procedural defense, the usual garbage. They can try, Aisha replied. They'll only bury themselves deeper. The car's hum filled the pause. Aisha's reflection stared back at her from the glass, composed, unreadable. She wasn't angry anymore. Not visibly. Anger had burned through. Now only precision remained. Naomi glanced at her. You're thinking of doing something. I already am. Naomi studied her face. Aisha, you just got out. Maybe breathe. Before Aisha turned. You think I built Monroe Biotech by breathing first. Naomi smirked faintly. Fair point. They rode the next few miles in silence. The city blurring by, billboards, glass towers, empty promises. When they reached Aisha's penthouse, the media was waiting there too. Flashbulbs, shouts, questions, that all sounded the same. Security led them through the lobby. Inside the elevator, Naomi finally spoke. Riggs will be disciplined, sure, maybe suspended, but they'll treat him as a bad apple, not a symptom. That's what they always do. So what's the plan? Aisha's eyes fixed on the glowing elevator numbers climbing upward. Not revenge, exposure. Naomi tilted her head. Defined exposure. Aisha's voice was calm, the kind that costs budgets, the kind that makes them wish they'd just apologized. The doors opened to her penthouse, glass walls overlooking the skyline, minimalist perfection now shadowed by tension. The city lights shimmered like a taunt. Her phone buzzed. Dozens of missed calls, board members, investors, journalists, all wanting one thing: control of the narrative. She ignored them all. Instead, she walked to the living room window. The reflection of blue sirens from the street below still danced faintly across the glass. Naomi joined her. "You know they'll ask why you didn't fight back in the moment." "I did," Aisha said, "just not the way they expected." She turned, moving to her desk. A folder lay there, one she'd been working on for months. A potential acquisition proposal for a municipal tech supplier, a company contracted by the same department that had arrested her. She ran a finger along the folder's edge. This might work faster than a lawsuit. Naomi frowned. "You're thinking corporate retaliation." "Not retaliation," Aisha said softly. Outside, thunder cracked a single, clean fracture of sound. Naomi exhaled. "Then, I'll start drafting press statements. Carefully. Don't rush," Aisha said. "I want them to underestimate me a little longer." Naomi smiled grimly. "You're terrifying when you're calm." Aisha's eyes didn't leave the skyline. Good.com makes people talk. The night thickened. In the distance, the city buzzed, every screen replaying her face, her voice, her humiliation. But beneath the noise, something quieter began moving, a shift in perception, a conversation too large to contain. And as Aisha shut off the lights, her silhouette framed against the city glow, she knew this wasn't the end of a scandal. It was the opening statement of something much bigger. The boardroom was glass and marble, a symbol of control, prestige, and money pretending to be morality. Now, it felt like an interrogation chamber. 10 board members sat around the oval table, suits, watches, crossed arms. The wall screen replayed the viral clip, muted Aisha being cuffed beside her car. Each flash of lightning through the tall windows made the paused frame shimmer, like a painting of betrayal. Aisha entered without greeting anyone. Her heels struck the floor in a rhythm that silenced the whispers. Naomi followed, setting a tablet beside her chair. Richard Glenn, the CFO, cleared his throat first. "Aisha, we're relieved you're all right. It's just what?" she asked, sitting down. He hesitated. "The footage is damaging. Investors are nervous. They think it makes the company look unstable." A slow blink. "I'm the one who was wrongfully arrested. Richard, not the company." He shifted. "Public doesn't separate the two. The optics are optics," she repeated, cutting him off. "You mean me?" Silence. The others looked away. Linda Chow, head of PR, tried for diplomacy. "No one's questioning your leadership, Aisha, but the narrative online, it's become political. People are framing it as corporate versus police, or race versus authority. We just need to manage the fallout." Naomi's voice was sharp. "Fallout from police misconduct, you mean?" Linda sighed. "That's not how sponsors see it. Some of our partners are uncomfortable." Aisha leaned back, studying each of them. "Uncomfortable with what? My skin? My success? Or the fact that injustice finally hit someone with a camera in her face?" A murmur of unease. Richard tried again. "We just don't want to jeopardize contracts." "The city's procurement board," Aisha interrupted. "The same board that approves funding for the department that arrested me." He blinked. "Yes, then maybe jeopardy is exactly what they need." The room went still. Linda spoke carefully. "You can't seriously be considering retaliation. That's not who we are as a company." Aisha smiled, a thin, surgical curve. "You'd be amazed who we are when we stop pretending." She rose, walking toward the glass wall overlooking the city. "For years, we've pitched innovation, diversity, ethics, but when it costs comfort, everyone flinches." Her reflection in the window stared back at her, poised, deliberate, relentless. Naomi broke the silence. "You all saw what happened. You saw how fast a lie becomes policy when it's convenient." Aisha's not asking for sympathy. She's pointing at a system that profits from her silence. A male voice at the far end spoke, deep, cautious. "And what exactly is she proposing?" Aisha turned, voice calm but charged. "We withdraw from every contract connected to that precinct until a full investigation occurs. We lobby for oversight into their private suppliers, and we acquire one of those suppliers ourselves." Richard's eyes widened. "You're talking about controlling part of the city's police supply chain?" "Yes, that's extreme." "No," she said, stepping closer. "That's leverage." Linda exhaled, shaking her head. "It'll be chaos." "It already is," Aisha replied. "The difference is, this time, I choose the terms." Naomi slid a document forward. "She's not bluffing. We've already begun due diligence on Sentinel Logistics. They provide the department's data infrastructure. It's a small firm, vulnerable, but profitable. Richard stared at the paper. You're serious. I'm consistent, Aisha said. You all wanted an image of power and principle. Here it is. Don't look away now. The projector light flickered across her face, the paused image of her arrest behind her like a ghost refusing to fade. Finally, the board chair, Margaret Linton, spoke. Her tone was brittle, aged steel. Aisha, what you endured was wrong. But this could redefine our relationship with every government client. You might win headlines and lose the company. Aisha met her gaze. Then we never deserved it. Margaret studied her, a long, quiet moment. Then she nodded once, slowly. Put it to a vote, the board murmured, uneasy. Hands rose, one after another. 7 in favor, 2 against, 1 abstained. Motion passed. Aisha didn't smile. She simply gathered her notes. Prepare this statement, she said. We go public tomorrow. As she turned to leave, Richard muttered under his breath, not quietly enough. You're playing with fire. She paused in the doorway. No, Richard, I am the fire. Outside, the corridor felt cooler, quieter. The tension left behind in that room was almost audible. A crack forming in a wall that had stood too long. Naomi caught up to her. You know this will make enemies. It already has. And allies. We'll see who believes what they post. They stepped into the elevator. As the doors closed, Naomi glanced at her. You really plan to buy out a police vendor? Aisha's reflection on the mirrored surface looked calm, almost serene. Not plan, she said. Execute. Down below, the city lights burned, restless, waiting. Somewhere, in precinct offices and political hallways, phones were already ringing. The sound of panic faint, distant, just beginning. The morning after the board meeting, the city woke to headlines that split the air like thunder. Monroe Biotech suspends all contracts with city police, demands investigation into racial profiling. The mayor's office scrambled. Emails poured in, talk shows filled with experts speculating about corporate activism and dangerous precedents. Aisha Monroe, for once, didn't check the news. She sat in her study, coffee untouched, eyes on the skyline. It was strange how sunlight could look both clean and hostile after a storm. Her phone rang. Naomi's voice cut through. The mayor's chief of staff wants a call. Now, they're not happy. Good, Aisha said. Let them call. Seconds later, her office line blinked red. She picked up. This is Aisha Monroe. A smooth, practiced voice replied. Ms. Monroe, this is Alan Price from the mayor's office. I'm reaching out to de-escalate this situation before it grows unnecessarily complicated. Complicated for whom? For everyone, he said. Tone soft but tight. Your company's announcement this morning, it's created a political firestorm. We'd like to find a resolution before this damages the city's reputation, and yours. Aisha leaned back in her chair. The city arrested me for driving my own car. I'd say the damage is mutual. Price sighed. Look, between us, Riggs will face discipline. There's already an internal review. Why not let the process handle it? Because the process is the problem, she said. A pause. He chose his next words carefully. Off the record, Ms. Monroe, the mayor values your partnership. If you were to issue a statement emphasizing reconciliation, perhaps even meet with the chief publicly, I think we could quietly sweep it away. I wouldn't phrase it that way. I would, she said. Good day, Mr. Price. He tried to interject. Ms. Monroe clicked. The line went dead. Aisha exhaled slowly, then turned to her computer. An email draft sat open. An acquisition proposal for Sentinel Logistics, the police department's data contractor. The numbers were solid. A quiet purchase, legal and surgical. She began typing, hands steady. If they respect no accountability, I'll buy the system that sustains them. Naomi entered, tablet in hand. You just hung up on City Hall, didn't you? Yes. Naomi grinned faintly. That'll trend by noon. Let it. Aisha saved the document. How's Sentinel responding? They're nervous. Their shares are dipping after the morning coverage. Their CEO wants to meet. Good. Schedule it. Naomi hesitated. Before we do, I need to ask. Are you sure this is where you want to spend your energy? You could sue, take the win, and walk away with the moral high ground. Aisha's voice was quiet. And what changes? Naomi didn't answer. Aisha stood, walking to the window. Below, the city pulsed. Sirens, traffic, drones, capturing headlines in real time. I'm not chasing vindication, she said. I'm setting precedent. They need to know what accountability feels like. Her reflection looked tired, older than she felt. The cost of composure was steep. Naomi's phone buzzed again. They're already reacting. Internal emails leaked. The department's blaming you for a corporate overreach. Let them. Media's framing it as a standoff. It's not a standoff, Aisha said. It's a reminder. Naomi sat opposite her, studying her face. You've been fighting your whole life, haven't you? A faint smile. I stopped counting years ago. Silence filled the room, thick but not uncomfortable. The hum of the city below carried like static between them. Then Naomi's voice, quieter now. You know they'll come after you. Smear campaigns, financial pressure, back-channel threats. I built my company through 1,000 doors they swore were locked, Aisha said. I'm not afraid of a few keys rattling. The phone buzzed again. Caller ID, Sentinel Logistics. Naomi raised a brow. That was fast, Aisha answered. Ms. Monroe speaking, male voice, formal but uneasy. Ms. Monroe, this is Daniel Rusk, CEO of Sentinel. Understand you've expressed interest in acquiring us. That's correct. I must warn you, we're under municipal contract. The city might object. They can object, she said. They can't stop business. Rusk hesitated. Why us? Because you hold their data, she said flatly. And I value transparency. A long pause. Then, softly, you're not bluffing, are you? No, Aisha said. I don't bluff. I invest. When she hung up, Naomi's expression was half disbelief, half admiration. You really are going through with it. Yes, Aisha replied, and by the time they realize what's happening, they'll already be answering to me. She turned back to her computer, typing the final line of her internal memo. When justice refuses to listen, power must change the language. Outside, the city moved on, unaware. It was already shifting under her hand. The council chamber smelled of varnished wood and ambition. Reporters filled the back row, cameras humming like insects. On the dais, uniformed officers lined up in their pressed blues, faces carved from pride and discomfort. Aisha Monroe sat alone at the witness table, a single folder in front of her. She wore a charcoal suit, precise, unshakable. The placard before her read, Dr. Aisha Monroe, CEO Monroe Biotech, the committee chair. Councilman Graves cleared his throat into the microphone. This hearing is to address allegations of racial bias within the city police department, following the high-profile arrest of Dr. Monroe. Dr. Monroe, thank you for your presence today. Thank you, Councilman. Graves glanced at the chief of police, who sat rigid 2 seats down. Chief Daniels, I understand your department has conducted an internal review. Daniels nodded curtly. Yes, sir. Officer Riggs has been suspended pending further investigation. We regret the incident. Aisha's voice was steady. Regret isn't accountability, Chief. Suspension isn't reform. The crowd murmured. Cameras, WHIR. Red Dot. Graves raised a hand. Please, Dr. Monroe. We'll give you your full time to speak. Aisha opened the folder inside. Documents, transcripts, and a printed email chain. Councilman, I have here communication logs between Sentinel Logistics, the police department's data contractor, and city officials. These messages detailed profiling algorithms, specifically targeting vehicles in neighborhoods labeled higher risk based on outdated demographic data. The chief shifted in his seat. That data was meant for operational. Aisha didn't raise her voice, but it cut through the chamber. Operational racism. The word landed. A reporter's camera flash exploded. Graves leaned forward, uneasy. Dr. Monroe, are you alleging a systemic bias within Sentinel's policing algorithm? I'm not alleging, she said. I'm confirming. And as of this morning, Monroe Biotech has acquired controlling interest in Sentinel Logistics, which means those systems are now under our audit. A beat of silence stretched into awe. Even Graves blinked, unsure whether he'd misheard. Chief Daniels stiffened. You what? Aisha turned slightly toward him. I own the infrastructure your department relies on, the same one that labeled my car suspicious. Murmurs rippled through the audience, some gasps, a few quiet claps before Graves banged his gavel. Order. Daniels' jaw worked. You can't. I already did. The chief's eyes darkened. This is an abuse of corporate power. No, Aisha said softly. It's an exposure of institutional abuse. I didn't create your bias. I just made it visible. Graves rubbed his temple. Dr. Monroe, this is extraordinary. But what exactly are you asking of the council? She met his gaze, voice clear. I want public accountability, immediate review of racial profiling policies, a restructured oversight committee with civilian leadership, and full transparency from the police department moving forward. Daniels muttered, "You're grandstanding." Aisha turned her head slowly toward him. "I was handcuffed in front of my staff for driving my own car. This isn't grandstanding, Chief. This is self-defense." A hush fell again. Even the reporters had gone still. Graves hesitated. "The council will deliberate." "No," Aisha said. "You'll act, because the data I now control can prove, line by line, every discriminatory stop, every skewed algorithm, every ignored complaint, and if you delay, the public will see it before you do." Naomi, sitting behind her, caught the faintest smile, not triumph, but exhaustion refined into purpose. Graves exhaled slowly. "You're leaving us little choice." "I'm giving you one," Aisha said. The gavel hit once, twice. "This hearing will recess." As the crowd erupted in chatter, Aisha gathered her papers. Daniels leaned forward, voice low and venomous. "You think you've won something?" She didn't look up. "No, Chief, I've just stopped losing quietly." He stood abruptly, knocking over his chair. Cameras turned instantly. He muttered something to his counsel and stormed out. Naomi whispered from behind her, "That's going viral. Let it." As they exited through the hallway, flashes followed them, reporters shouting, microphones thrust forward. Double quotes. "Dr. Monroe, did you plan this takeover from the start? Is this revenge or reform? Do you plan to fire the department?" She paused only once, turning to face the cameras. Her voice was calm, precise, surgical. "I don't fire people," she said. "I fire systems that protect them." That line hit every feed, every social thread, every late-night panel. By sunset, her face was the thumbnail for a national debate. But that night, alone in her apartment, the adrenaline faded. She removed her earrings, placed them beside the sink, and stared into the mirror. Her reflection didn't look like victory. It looked like weight. She whispered to no one. What did it cost, this time? No answer came. Only the distant hum of traffic, and the echo of her own power. Quiet, terrible, necessary. The city woke to headlines that read like verdicts. Police tech exposed for racial profiling. Black CEO takes control of Sentinel systems. Chief Daniels under fire after hearing meltdown. By dawn, the department's press office was in crisis mode. Reporters camped outside precinct doors. The mayor's office released a statement calling for urgent leadership restructuring. The phrase was code. Everyone knew who it meant. Inside her penthouse, Aisha watched the news in silence. Naomi stood near the window, scrolling her phone. "They're calling for his resignation," Naomi said. Aisha didn't look away from the screen. "He'll resist." "They always do." Naomi smirked faintly. "He's got nowhere to run. His career's done." "Career," Aisha murmured, "but not culture." Naomi paused. "You mean, the department?" "I mean the idea that people like me need permission to exist." Outside, the morning was bright, too bright, almost cruel, in its indifference. Naomi's phone buzzed again. "The mayor's team wants to open dialogue. They want a meeting." Aisha gave a slight nod. "Schedule it, afternoon." The mayor's office was all glass and guarded smiles. Cameras clicked as Aisha entered, flanked by Naomi and her legal team. The mayor, a silver-haired man with the tone of practiced empathy, extended his hand. "Dr. Monroe, I want to personally apologize on behalf of the city." Aisha shook his hand but didn't smile. "Apologies are PR. I'm here for commitments." He gestured toward the table. "Please, sit. Let's talk about what that looks like." Aisha opened her folder, sliding documents across the table, a drafted proposal for a civilian oversight board, an independent ethics commission, and a full termination of Sentinel's biased systems. The mayor scanned it, brow furrowed. "You're asking for authority over." "I'm not asking," she said evenly. "I'm offering the infrastructure that can make your reform credible." Naomi added, "Or you can wait for the federal investigation to start. Your choice." The mayor leaned back. The clock on the wall ticked in heavy rhythm. He looked up at Aisha, a man weighing optics against survival. Finally, he sighed. "You'll have what you want." Aisha closed the folder. "Not what I want. What's overdue?" The meeting ended in 15 minutes. Outside, the air felt thinner, sharper. Naomi exhaled, half smiling. "That's it, then. Department overhaul begins next week." Aisha nodded. "The system folds from the top." But her voice carried no triumph, only fatigue. Later that evening, she returned to her office. The city skyline stretched before her, steel and light, indifferent as always. Her team had left hours ago. The space was silent except for the hum of electronics. Her phone buzzed again. A message from her assistant. Chief Daniels resigned, effective immediately. Aisha stared at the screen for a long moment. No satisfaction came, just stillness. She rose and crossed to the window, looking down at the city below, sirens weaving through streets, like arteries of noise. Her reflection stared back. The woman who had survived arrest, humiliation, and spectacle. The woman who now held the system that once caged her, but the reflection didn't look free, it looked haunted. Naomi entered quietly behind her. They just confirmed it. Daniels is out. They're naming an interim chief tomorrow. Aisha didn't turn. He'll disappear into consultancy, maybe private security. They always do. Still a victory, Naomi said. Aisha shook her head. It's a beginning, not a victory. She turned then, her expression clear but heavy. Naomi, I burned through everything to make this happen. My reputation, my peace. What does winning mean if it leaves you hollow? Naomi hesitated, then stepped closer. It means someone else won't have to do it next time. That line lingered, quiet, unanswerable. Aisha finally sat, rubbing her temples. Maybe, but they'll still try. Naomi gave a small, tired smile. Then they'll meet someone ready. 2 weeks later, the first oversight session convened. New protocols, civilian representation, transparency initiatives. The press hailed it as a new era. But Aisha didn't attend the ceremony. She stayed home, barefoot, sitting by the window with a cup of tea gone cold. Outside, a storm gathered again, wind pressing against the glass, the same sound as that night in the parking lot. She replayed it sometimes, not the handcuffs, not the humiliation, but the stillness after. The moment she realized silence could be louder than rage, her phone vibrated once more. Naomi's text. News says it's official. Reform bill passed unanimously. Aisha typed back only 2 words. About time. She set the phone aside and watched the lightning thread across the skyline. For the first time in weeks, she closed her eyes, not to rest, but to remember. The fear, the restraint, the refusal to break. And when thunder rolled through the city again, it sounded almost like applause, distant, uneven, real. The first months after the hearing felt like an echo chamber. Every word Aisha had spoken replayed across news segments, interviews, op-eds, documentaries, but none of that noise reached the quiet corners of her life. She still woke before dawn, still drank black coffee by the window, still sat in silence long after her phone stopped buzzing. The city below had changed its headlines, but not its heartbeats. Across town, murals of her face appeared on brick walls, her expression resolute, the quote beneath them in clean white paint. I don't fire people, I fire systems that protect them. Tourists took pictures, activists shared them online. Aisha didn't visit any of them. She couldn't look at herself turned into a symbol. Naomi visited often. She'd learned not to knock, just walked in with files and food. Press still wants a sit down, she said one afternoon, setting her laptop on the table. CNN, BBC, half the podcasts in the world. No. Naomi raised a brow. You can't stay silent forever. I can, Aisha said softly. They only want the performance, the palatable version of pain. I'm not giving them that. Naomi sighed. Then at least come back to the office. You've been gone 3 weeks. Aisha looked out the window. The company's fine. Without you, it's restless. Aisha finally turned. Good. Restlessness means it's alive. Naomi exhaled, leaning back in her chair. You ever think about what comes next? Always, Aisha said. That's the curse of surviving. Down at City Hall, the Monroe reforms, as the press called them, had started reshaping policy. The department's old hierarchy fractured. New oversight committees held public sessions streamed live. Some officers quit. Some stayed and adapted. For every headline praising her, there were hundreds of comments seething with coded hatred, anonymous threats, letters calling her ungrateful, dangerous, too powerful. Aisha read none of them. Naomi filtered everything before it reached her, but the weight still found her in every meeting, every silent glance that lingered too long, every handshake too firm, too false. In public, she had become a movement. In private, she was unraveling by inches. One evening, she met her father for dinner, the first time since the arrest. He'd retired years ago from teaching history, his posture still precise, his eyes still sharp. They sat in a quiet restaurant, tucked away from the cameras, He looked at her for a long time before speaking. You did what most people only dream about. I exposed the system, she said, not changed it. Exposure is change, if it forces reflection. Aisha stirred her tea. Reflection isn't enough. They'll rebrand, rebuild, and start over. Her father smiled faintly, and then another Aisha will rise, and another, until the system runs out of ways to reinvent itself. She looked up. You sound too hopeful. I'm old, he said. Hope is the only rebellion left to me. Aisha almost smiled, then looked away. Do you know what it cost? He nodded. Everything worth keeping does. When she returned home that night, she found Naomi sitting in her living room, laptop open, eyes wide. You need to see this, Naomi said. On the screen, a live feed from a local station. Chief Daniels, former chief, standing outside his home, reporters swarming. He looked thinner, frayed. His voice shook as he read from a prepared statement. I take full responsibility for my actions and the culture that enabled them. Dr. Monroe's courage has forced this city to face what it ignored. I am resigning from public service permanently. He paused. The cameras caught the tremor in his hand. Dr. Monroe, he added, you deserved better from all of us. The clip ended. Silence filled the room. Naomi closed the laptop slowly. That's unexpected. Aisha stared at the dark screen. No, it's calculation. He wants redemption. Naomi frowned. You don't believe it. I believe in consequences, not conversions. But the truth, unspoken, was that for a brief moment, she had felt something shift. Not forgiveness, but release. Days turned to weeks. The story began to fade from front pages, swallowed by new crises. That was how it always went. Aisha returned to work, quieter, sharper. She no longer attended panels or accepted awards. She refused photo shoots and branding campaigns that tried to polish her defiance into inspiration. At Monroe Biotech, her focus shifted from corporate growth to community investment, scholarships, legal aid programs, mentorship for underrepresented entrepreneurs. Each initiative bore no nameplate, no logo. Naomi noticed, you're building something quieter. Aisha looked up from her desk. Noise built this city. Silence will heal it. One night, she received an anonymous envelope. No sender, no note. Inside, a single photo. It was from the night of the arrest. Her standing by her car, cuffed, surrounded by officers. But this angle was different. Taken by a bystander's phone. In the image, her eyes weren't fearful. They were cold, unbroken. She stared at the photo for a long time before setting it down. Naomi entered a few minutes later. You okay? Aisha nodded. Yes, finally. Want me to trace where it came from? No, she said, slipping the photo into a drawer. Some memories deserve to stay anonymous. Months later, she was invited to give a lecture at her alma mater. The hall was filled with students, some hopeful, some angry, some uncertain. She began without preamble. Power doesn't change people, she said. It reveals them. When they put me in handcuffs, I saw who they were. When I bought their system, I saw who I'd become. The room went still. I didn't win, she continued. I just stopped asking for permission to fight. A student in the front row raised a hand. Was it worth it? Aisha paused, then smiled faintly. Ask me again when you're the one standing there. The audience rose to their feet, applause rolling like a tide. She stood there, beneath the lights, surrounded by echoes of change, not peace, but momentum. And as she stepped off the stage, her phone buzzed with a message from Naomi. Another department just requested your oversight model. It's spreading. Aisha typed back one word. Good. She turned off her phone, walked outside into the night air, and for the first time in months, breathed without armor. The city lights shimmered across her face, the same city that once humiliated her now, unknowingly rebuilt by her hand. And though she knew the fight would never end, she also knew this. The next time someone tried to silence a voice like hers, the world would already be listening. A year passed. The city looked different, though not enough for anyone to claim victory. Reforms had turned into systems, committees had turned into routines, and headlines had quieted. But beneath that stillness, something lasting had taken root, a kind of awareness that didn't fade when the cameras did. Aisha Monroe no longer lived in the penthouse overlooking the skyline. She'd sold it quietly and moved to a smaller house near the edge of the city. Brick walls, oak trees, the sound of distant traffic instead of sirens. Every morning, she walked the same path through her neighborhood, unnoticed, unguarded. The world didn't point cameras anymore, and she liked it that way. Her company had tripled in valuation, but the numbers didn't matter. Monroe Biotech had evolved beyond profit. It now funded public equity labs, data ethics programs, and a new training institute for minority law graduates. The name over its entrance read, the Monroe Center for Justice Systems Innovation. Naomi ran the day-to-day operations now. She still called every evening. You'd hate how slow the committee is, Naomi said one night over the phone. Half of them want optics, not reform. I expected that, Aisha replied, sitting on her porch steps. Systems don't fall overnight. They collapse in increments. Naomi sighed. You could still come back, public voice, conferences, people would listen. I'm not a face anymore, Aisha said. I'm a framework. That's better. Naomi laughed softly. You really do talk like a CEO, even in retirement. I'm not retired, Aisha said, looking at the dusk spreading across the sky, just recalibrating. Later that week, she was invited to a small community event in one of the neighborhoods that had once been heavily profiled by Sentinel's algorithms. Children ran between tables, local vendors set up food stalls, and murals covered old walls with color and memory. As she walked through, people recognized her, not with fanfare, but quiet gratitude. A woman selling fruit stopped her. You don't remember me, she said, but I was there that night, the night they took you in cuffs. Aisha blinked. You filmed it. The woman nodded. I posted it, didn't think anyone would see, but it changed everything. Aisha smiled gently. No, you changed everything. They stood in silence for a moment, the noise of laughter and music filling the space between them. Then the woman said, It's better now. Not perfect, but better. Aisha nodded once. That's all I ever wanted. Back at home that night, she sat at her desk, the same folder from a year ago, now filled with new projects, new partnerships. She took a pen and began writing a letter, not to anyone living, but to herself, the version who once sat in that interrogation room with cuff marks on her wrists. Dear Aisha, you didn't break. You bent the rules until they bent back toward you. The silence you endured became the language of every woman who ever had to swallow her truth to survive. They called it arrogance when you stood tall. They'll call it legacy when they stand on the ground you've steadied. Don't look for closure. Look for continuity. She folded the letter and placed it in a drawer, beside the photo from the arrest. Both belonged to the same story, one that no longer needed retelling. Months later, a university unveiled a statue on its campus, bronze, deliberate, standing in front of the new Ethics and Justice Department building. The inscription beneath it read, Dr. Aisha Monroe, Architect of Accountability. She taught us that systems can learn, too. Aisha didn't attend the ceremony. She watched the live stream quietly from home. Students walked past the statue, laughing, taking pictures. She smiled, faintly amused. Let the world remember a cleaner version, she murmured. The real one belongs to me. That night, Naomi visited. They sat outside, wrapped in the chill of early winter. Naomi said, You realize this is going to outlive both of us. Good, Aisha said. That's the point. Still, Naomi added, They'll tell your story wrong. They'll make it neat. Aisha smirked. They always do. Truth doesn't trend well. Naomi chuckled, then fell silent. Do you ever think about Riggs? Aisha paused. Sometimes. He was a symptom. I don't hate symptoms. I treat them. Do you ever think about the fear? Aisha looked up at the stars. Every day. It's how I remember. I'm still human. Naomi nodded, then stood. You'll come to the gala next month, right? They're naming a justice fellowship after you. Tell them to name it after someone who still needs it. You never make it easy to honor you. Aisha smiled. Good honor should be earned, not sculpted. As Naomi drove away, Aisha remained on the porch, listening to the night. In the distance, a police siren wailed, brief, fading quickly into quiet. Once, that sound had meant threat. Now, it meant change was still in motion. She closed her eyes, the wind brushing against her face. The city was no longer just a skyline of power and control. It was a map of unfinished corrections, and she was content with that. Legacy, she thought, wasn't in monuments or headlines. It was in corrections that stuck. Her phone buzzed one last time, a message from a number she didn't recognize. It read, Thank you. They treated me better this time. No name, no signature, just proof that the world had shifted, even slightly. Aisha smiled, setting the phone aside. In the distance, dawn began its slow rise, gold bleeding through the gray. She whispered, almost to herself. Finally, the light touched her face, soft, deliberate. Final.